do have an article that we ran actually yesterday in Quality Digest Daily called Applying a Process Improvement to Training, which was written by Bill Hathaway, CEO of moresteam.com. And interesting piece, this one, applying process improvement to training, because it talks about blended learning, and it talks about how we as quality professionals do so much work to ensure that our processes and our companies are quality. Well, what are we doing to improve ourselves? What are we doing to improve the concept of training, right? Training is probably the number one thing that companies spend money on. It's certainly right up there as one of the key expenses. And do we do it well? Do we, and I think the line that Bill had in his piece was, are we eating our own cooking?
Right.
Are we really embodying that or not in what we do every day? So I want to talk a little bit about this story and get into this a little bit deeper with Bill Hathaway. Bill is going to join us here via Skype. Bill, are you there?
I'm here.
Great. Thanks, Bill, for joining us and coming on the show. I prepped a little bit about the article that you wrote for us that appeared in yesterday's issue of Quality Digest Daily. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about blended learning. Let's talk about benefits first and foremost. What are, within a blended learning environment, what specifically about that format really has specific benefits for quality professionals in particular?
Well, the driver really, I guess I'd say two drivers. The primary driver is that everyone faces is cost right now. So in every business, we're trying to find ways of getting things done at a lower expense rate. And training is a pretty expensive proposition. So the move towards blended training has really been a move to embrace technology to lower costs. And the second driver is to try to do that while also improving quality, so that the training outcomes are critically important. So it's not about just taking cost out of the training model, but how do we change the training model so that it works better, and also we reduce costs at the same time. And so it's been a very interesting evolution over the last 10 years as technology has allowed us to do more and more interesting things, but yet there's still certainly a lot of benefit to getting people together, and process improvement is a team sport. Mm-hmm. So training individuals to participate in that team sport requires also helping them to build connections with the people that they're going to be working with. That's hard to do solely using technology.
Well, you talk about costs, and certainly we know we've seen it that the costs of getting on a plane and getting out to a training somewhere in Middle America, East Coast, West Coast, wherever it may be, it's pretty hefty. I mean, you're talking about a lot of money to gather people together to have face-to-face training, and there's certainly a lot of it's effective to do that, but you're right, the technology, and hey, we're seeing it right now. We have you here via Skype. Right. We're having a conversation with you. You're imparting learning wisdom to us. So this is what it's all about. So, do you feel that, and you mentioned it, the technology really has brought us to the point where we can do this effectively. And do you feel like quality professionals really are embracing that more? Have you seen more of a rush to do that from your experience?
Well, absolutely. I see. As we move to more of an on-demand world, part of the emphasis now is I suppose thinking of learning in more practical, on-demand ways. So how do I find the information that I need right now? How do I build capability when I need it? And if you think in lean terms, which we like to think about lean learning, which is not learning about lean, but learning in a lean way, which means responding to pull signals, not training far in advance of use. I think of knowledge as kind of like inventory, really. So when you use a batch-oriented training system, which is essentially what classroom training is, and there are oftentimes good reasons to do that, really you're guessing about what people are going to need to know. So typically in that model, we're building capability that's like inventory that's going to sit in the warehouse, and it may be used or it may not be. And if it's not, we're going to suffer shrinkage and obsolescence, just like real inventory. So we're trying to think about ways that we can make the learning more responsive, more scalable, more flexible, so that we can deliver the building of capability at the point of use when it's needed, and not spend a lot of time, money, and effort training people to use tools that they may or may not ever use.
Well, let me jump in on that for a minute, because I think it beggars a point that we again chat about a lot here on the show, and it's the idea of the efficacy of Six Sigma, for instance. Now, fair disclosure, More Steam, one of the things you do is that you do offer learning, blended learning within the Six Sigma space. Master Black Belt training. Now, we hear from readers all the time that there's certainly a lot of concern, controversy, questioning about Six Sigma, and about the efficacy of all the tools. It can be a complicated tool set. It can bring a lot of information to people, some of whom will use some of it, some of whom won't use that much of it. So how do you respond to critics of Six Sigma and Six Sigma training?
Well, I think the best metaphor it's important to separate the tools, the practices from general management practice. And so the best metaphor that I can use is to think about accounting. Okay, so accounting is really useful and necessary. And in the absence of accounting, then if we don't have actual numbers, then we're guessing, I suppose. But yet lots of people don't use accounting properly. So it's sort of like saying that because of Enron, accounting is not a good practice. Well, the two are completely separate. So certainly there are people that have tried Lean Six Sigma that have not executed it well. It's not secret sauce. It's no kind of magic bullet. It requires management commitment. If you go back to Deming, that constancy of purpose has to be there for it to work. But it's like any other management practice or tool that cannot just be sprinkled across the organization and expected to work.
Let me ask you about design for Six Sigma, something we touched on yesterday real quickly, and that's an important part of this too, and where we're pushing the concept of Six Sigma a little further up into the stream, the workflow. How does design for Six Sigma fit into all this, and how would you advise people to look at DFSS?
Well, first of all, I think it's a huge opportunity. I think that even calling it Design for Six Sigma is a little scary to some folks. It sounds more complicated than it is. There have been criticisms that Design for Six Sigma somehow inhibits innovation and hampers creativity, and I think it's really misguided. Certainly, any kind of overbearing process can hamper creativity, but think about, I like to think about it in this terms. It's sort of like saying that Six Sigma applied to publishing a novel would somehow making sure there are no typos and that the pages are printed properly would detract from the quality of the written work. So, if you get your desk and your workspace organized, you can do better creative work. If you have a clearer understanding of what it is you're trying to accomplish and what customers actually want, then you can do better, more relevant creative work. So the two really work hand in hand. They don't work at cross purposes if they're used properly.
Bill, that's great. Yeah, great summary, I think, of where we're at with this. And I appreciate your time. We got to go. We're at the end of our half hour here, a fast half hour for us today. But thanks again for joining us. We want to bring you back and talk to you some more at a later date and explore these issues with you. So thanks again
for... It was great to be with you.
Yeah, we really appreciate you joining us this afternoon. And like I say, we'll see you down the road.